Welcome, everybody, to the Beer Guys Radio Show. It is time for our annual Oktoberfest blind beer tasting annual tradition. Brian, I didn't even think to look up what annual this is. I think we're on 7 or 8 right now. Do you recall?
I don't know. I should have looked because I think we've got old runs of show for all of them.
We do.
So, yeah.
We've kept up. I don't think we did it our first year, so this may be our 8th. But anyhow, it's several of them. We've been doing them for a while. And y'all, this is Tim Dennis. This is Tim D, as you know me. Brian Hewitt here, hanging with me, drinking beers and having a good time. Brian, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. We drank a lot of Oktoberfest beers, and we've had like cognac and like really great bourbon. So it's
and Coca-Cola flavored Oreos.
We did, yes. I found those and brought those in.
You know, I just noticed on the bag this says it has popping candy in it.
It does.
I didn't get that.
It's for the carbonation effect. I don't know if it delivers that.
I'll have to revisit the cookies.
Yeah.
I'll have to revisit the cookies.
If there's a little bit of a sparkle to it, that's what that's about. Theoretically.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Mo Mike Nate, how are you doing?
Doing well. Happy to help facilitate in the bourbon, the cognac, and the general spirits education.
Appreciate it. Yeah, Nate's our spirits and cocktail. Brian is
our spirit guide.
So it's our spirit guide. Brian is a fan and drinks a lot, but I think Nate, knowledge level and depth definitely is the go-to guy there. And a very special guest this year. Normally we have Party Nate here with us, but Party Nate had another engagement. We got Party Zach.
Oh, it's Party Zach now?
Party Zach, I've decided.
I love it.
Yeah.
I'm here for it.
So, Zach, thanks for helping us out. He helped us keep this blind.
I did.
For us.
I did. I blindfolded everybody.
Yes.
Made sure everyone couldn't hear anything, see anything, taste anything. It was totally blind. They don't even know what beers they tasted. Don't.
We're not even sure some of it was beer.
Yeah.
Actually.
I did add a little bit of milk into everything.
Nice.
Just to really throw a
extra lactose.
Yeah.
Nice. Well done. They were all creamy, I found. So
yeah,
they were creamy.
He did threaten us with violence if we cheated, so he's really keeping us on track here. So we've got to do that. Well, guys, we've got a lot to get into. This year we tasted 12 beers. We did them in 4 rounds of 3 beers each. So we are going to go through this. We're going to talk about each round individually. We still don't know, as we record this, we still don't know what beers were what. But Zach is going to reveal these to us as we go through each round. And then at the end, we'll bring it all together and let you know what we did. But, I will run down real quick for those who want to know the list. I know sometimes people don't like hanging out till the end just to find. These are the 12 beers that we tasted this year. We had from Ayinger, we had their Oktoberfest Marzen. Edmund's Oast, we had their House Oktoberfest. From Highland Brewing, we had their Clawhammer Oktoberfest. Paulaner Oktoberfest Marzen. We had good old Sammy Adams Oktoberfest. I think it's been on every one we've done. We always make sure to get Sam Adams in here, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's all of our first Oktoberfest ever.
I think so.
And it's the only one that is spelled October with a C instead of the K. I notice that every year. And I get the spelling correction on that every time I type it, but not the other one, which is funny to me. So,
crazy stuff, man. Crazy stuff. From Sierra Nevada, collaboration with Gutman Brewing, we have their Oktoberfest Fest beer. From Six Bridges Local, we always throw a couple locals in. We want to give a little local love. So from Six Bridges, I have found out, I believe this is pronounced Feierabend instead of, it looks like Fairbend, but that is their Marzen. From Terrapin Beer Company, we have their Oktoberfest Marzen style. From Tucher, probably, we have their Fest beer. Warsteiner Oktoberfest Marzen, Weihenstephaner Fest beer, and Yingling Oktoberfest. And one we didn't add to the tasting that we'll get into here in a little bit because we didn't have enough to add, but we have a Shiner. We have a Shiner Oktoberfest that we're going to sample and just see how it goes. So those are the beers on the list there. We'll jump right into it. Round 1. Nate, let's start with you, man. What were your thoughts on round 1?
So for round 1, I don't have a whole lot of notes because it just didn't seem to have a whole lot of body for me. The only 2 notes I really have for it is that it was malty and it had a bitter finish, but that bitterness just seemed to drop off really quickly for me.
Okay. You know what I think I'm going to do here? I think I'm going to let Zach give us a reveal. So when we're talking about these,
that's a great
people
idea.
know what's up. So Zach, our first beer was, I'm on the wrong page.
You're on the wrong
number
page?
10 doesn't look right here. So
that is not. Number 10 was not first.
Our first beer that we tried.
Drumroll, please. The first beer that you all sampled was from Terrapin Beer, their Oktoberfest.
Very interesting. And that one I actually made a prediction. I made a guess that I thought that was a Sierra Nevada. And obviously I was incorrect. Brian, you initially said, no, he's wrong, but you came around to maybe on that one as well, right?
I did, because I got some hop presence to that.
Okay.
And, I was thinking, it's like, you know what? And I think it might have been because I had just eaten an Oreo, and I think it magnified all the bitter and like the floral characteristics of everything, which kind of threw me off at the beginning. I did a thorough job of like rinsing after that. But yeah, I initially, when I drank this one, I got a hint of like a little bit of skunkiness. So I thought it was actually a German one.
A German one. Okay.
But I didn't get it after the first sip. So
gotcha.
I thought it was all right. And it did seem a little higher on the hop content to me. But yeah. That's what I thought, Tim.
So those were my notes. There was a detectable hop bitterness in there, and I said a slight sweetness. So there wasn't really that stood out a lot on this one. It's noted as a Marzen. It looked very Festbier from what I recall, right? Or am I thinking the other way around? I thought it was a Festbier, and it was.
You're thinking the other way around, yeah.
So, but that was the first beer that we tasted there. Zach, what was the second beer that we tried?
Well, you all are very close in your first and second. Perhaps you just got the palette switched around, because coming in at number 2 is the Sierra Nevada. Yes. Right. Maybe when I opened it, it splashed a little.
That could be it. It was in the air.
It was in the air.
Yeah. Gotcha. All right. So I hate to say this, guys, but my notes on this was just unmemorable, really. Yeah. It really didn't stand out for me. I said mild and sweet, and I got a certain character that reminded me of kind of a soapy note in this one. Now, when I drank this on the show and I noticed and I knew what I was drinking, it was hoppy and bitter. And again, I think I may have even mentioned on the show that I didn't think that was their best showing in that one. So those are my thoughts on that. Brian, what were your thoughts on the Sierra Nevada?
So I didn't notice I did. It's like I said, it had a bitter edge to it. I definitely noticed that, and maybe that should have cued me in. I was thinking, like, is this maybe I was trying to figure out. It's a fest beer. Which one is it going to be? I'm like, is it maybe the Cougar? Like, I was completely off base on this. But I got grain. I got some bitter hoppy edge to it. I wasn't in love with this one. I'm going to be honest with you. Yeah.
All right. Oh, there we go. Zach, what'd you think of the Sierra Nevada?
You know, I hate to say it, it was unmemorable, because I remember having it second, of course, and I just in the mouth, out through the lips, through the gums, look out, stomach, here we go.
Those are the notes. Right?
Those were the notes. Okay. Like it was definitely the most beer I've ever had.
Okay, it's a very beer.
It's a very beer.
This is very beer. All right. Zach, what's our number 3 beer?
And wrapping up the first round of samples, we have Paulaner Oktoberfest Marzen as number 3.
Gotcha. Nate, what was your thoughts on the Paulaner?
So this one to me seemed a little lighter. It at least in the glass, and fortunately it was not a beer clean glass. It seemed extra effervescent. It seemed like it was a little heavier on the carbonation. This one was an early winner for me. It was my round of 3 winner, and then later on in the tasting, it fell to the 4th place for me.
Fell down a little bit there. Yeah, this one also took my round 1, and my notes are, it was very clean. It was very crisp, some sweet malt character. I did get a little bit more of the malt character than I did in the first 2 that we had. And I made a note that I thought that was a German one. It stood out to me that it was probably one of the German ones. So cool. All right, good stuff. Brian, what were your thoughts on the Paulaner?
So the Paulaner was also we did them in rounds of 3, and that was my favorite of this particular round. It had a nicer kind of a sweet, crackery malt that I really enjoyed. It did have a little bit of hop character, but not too much. And I was speculating. I thought this was German. I wasn't sure which one. So I was thinking, it's like, maybe this is the Weihenstephaner, because I've had that prior to the show, and I remember liking that. I'm like, this is pretty good, and I like that one. I'm like, I can't remember if it's quite the same, but I was right in that it was German. I was wrong in which brewery it was.
In which one it was.
But it was good. I liked it.
Zach, how about your thoughts? What did you think of that one?
Yeah, I'm pretty much going to echo everyone else, but it felt very crisp. It was light. It was definitely my favorite out of the first round of sampling. Kudos to Paulaner. I think that was a very well-rounded beer.
Tasty beer. All right, so that was our first round. I think now we're not going to say yet which one took the overall competition, but out of the first 3 beers we drank, I think that one is pretty consistent. Brian, yes, sir?
I was just going to say that I think this year I have to give kudos to Paulaner because we have had really bad showings from them in previous years. And this is one of the better years we've had in probably 3 or 4.
In a few years, yeah.
Good job, Paulaner.
Well, Brian, before we move on to our next round, we always like to throw in some trivia info and all that about Oktoberfest. And we actually had a discussion on our Discord server with our Patreon crew, and they were talking about the chicken hat. Like, where in the world did that even come from? What is the deal with the chicken hat? And I think you looked up a little bit what the deal was with the chicken hat. Not a lot of lore to that, right? But you found out something.
Not really. So the connection is to the chicken dance, but the origin of the Oktoberfest chicken hat can be traced back to John Harrell, fellow known as the Chicken Man, who began selling them at the Oktoberfest party in Cincinnati in the 1990s. His inspiration came from a trip to a different Oktoberfest where he and his friends learned the chicken dance, and they began wearing chicken hats for fun. The hats were well received, and Harold decided to start selling them. So he started selling them in Cincinnati, and they took on and hit the world after that. So,
Brian, I'm going to ask you a question that you probably didn't dig all the way in to find out, but how did the chicken dance become an Oktoberfest thing? And I know it's kind of polka-y, so I'm assuming it just became a polka that turned into that. But do you know how the chicken dance became part of Oktoberfest?
I do not. You're correct in guessing that I don't know. So.
I like to do that. I like to dig deeper into subjects and find out exactly what it was. And usually I think of something that I'm like, I bet Brian did not do this. So therefore, that means that I am going to. I'm going to ask him about it, of course.
You know what? So. I do have something from AI. I did a quick Google, and it's a complicated history. It involves the work of a Swiss accordionist and a German band and a celebration in Tulsa, Oklahoma in the 1950s. So, it's not 100%. I'm not 100% clear on that.
We're lucky that we have the internet now. I tell you what, why don't you take a look, and we'll come back and fill in the blanks on this here in just a little bit. So, the chicken hat, of course, came because of the chicken dance, but we'll find out exactly why in the world the chicken dance is all part of Oktoberfest. But with that said, we're going to move on to our second grouping of beers. Zach, what was our number 4 beer that we tasted?
So coming in at number 4 was also one of my own personal favorites, though not number 1. That's going to be from Highland Brewing, the Clawhammer Oktoberfest.
Very nice. All right. Good stuff, man. Good stuff. Nate, what did you think of number 4?
So keep in mind that I was judging number 4 based off of the previous 3 beers that we had just tasted. So my initial note was that it had a bigger body. It seemed like it was a little bit more robust, had a lot more flavor character to it than I experienced in the first round of 3 beers. And then I said it had a bitter, nice finish to it.
Okay, very good. For this one, my notes, rich maltiness. Like this one brought more character in the malt category to it. And I said just soft and crisp, even those may sound a little contradictory, but it wasn't so dark and rich that you're crossing over from it being a nice crispy beer. So it was still really good. Of course, I mean, this is a little, maybe meaningless, but I'm like, okay, this is definitely a Marzen, judged by the color and the style and that. But that was one that really impressed me. That made it to my finals. That definitely made it to my finals of the ones that I love. But that was a good one. Definitely. So Zach, what'd you think of that one?
Yeah, I'm going to have to echo you guys again. I thought that the maltiness in this one was especially delightful, and that it did, again, to use the same words, very robust, and it just felt like it packed a punch, but not so much that you were reeling from it. It was like, oh, that was a good hit. I enjoyed that.
Right. Yeah. Something I know this beer is here kind of thing, but not knocking you out. Yeah. So I think we all enjoyed that one really good. Zach, what was our number 5 beer?
Oh, coming in at number 5, I can't wait for people to tell me how horribly I mispronounced this. This is the Weihenstephaner Festbier.
All right. I think you're pretty close there.
Well, I think I was pretty close.
At least based on
I'm
my
Irish, not German. I'm sorry.
Okay. So close there. So close. Nate, what'd you think of the Weihenstephaner?
Meh. It's fine. It's just okay. It was a beer that I could see myself enjoying. If I'm at a beer garden, it's outside. Georgia is hitting 90s again.
We are.
And so in 90-degree autumn weather, I would enjoy this beer when it's hot outside and I just need something cool and refreshing.
Little Schweinhaxe to go with it, man. Tear it up. Brian, how about you, man? What are your thoughts on the Weihenstephaner.
So I feel weird about this one because I've had it before the show. I had it a couple of times, and I really liked it. But when I had it here compared to everything else, it was like I was kind of in the It was all right as it warmed up. They were a little cold to start. I thought it was fine, but it never really went anywhere for me. I really thought that I would be able to pick this one out, and it would be a favorite because I really did enjoy drinking it before this. It just really wasn't as good as the other ones. A decent fest beer. Yeah. I know that it'll be enjoyable if you pick one up. You'll like it. But yeah, for me, it's not even close to being in my top. So yeah, that's where I'm at.
Unfortunately, my notes on it, I just said this is fine, and that's it. You know, if you were out somewhere, you're out having some German food or any kind of food, and you see, and you're like, oh, there's a fest beer. You know, I'm going to have that. This would definitely fit the bill for that. But when we're setting it against 11 other, you know, good Oktoberfest style beers, it just really didn't stand out from the crowd. So again, the beer was fine. There were no flaws, nothing that turned me off from it. It just really just didn't do anything that stood up and said, take note there. So absolutely. Zach, our number 6 beer, what do we drink?
And coming in at number 6 from Boston, at least perhaps originally, is the Sam Adams Oktoberfest.
Alrighty, good deal. So with this one, I enjoyed it. I put some caramel character, a toast, noticeable toastiness there. I said, this is a fine beer. And I think I used fine differently than this is fine. This is a fine beer. But I enjoyed this one. I did notice that as we're tasting through these, and I went back and revisited, this one was a little cold when I first got it. And as it warmed, it did open up a little bit more and became even better. So that was one that made it to my final round as well for voting. But overall, I enjoyed it. And that's one that if you look back at our shows, and Nate, you looked up, what's our timeline? We started this in like 2018.
So yeah, this is our 7th year doing the Oktoberfest blind tasting.
Okay. So, and Sammy Adams has been hit or miss for us, I think. You know, we always put it in there because I think for a lot of us, it was our first Oktoberfest. So it definitely has some sentimental value there. And we always should make sure to include it. Sometimes it's a winner. Sometimes it is not. It was good. It was good this year for sure. Yeah. Brian, what'd you think of Sammy?
I thought it was fine. I really enjoyed the malt character into this, and it didn't place very highly, but it was a welcome change from some of them. And I was just thinking now, was Sam Adams the one that the one year did a Marzen and a Fest beer both? And
I believe they did. Yep. One only came in their variety pack. That was the deal with that.
That was the Fest beer.
And I think the Fest beer was actually the one that won, and the other one was in the top 3. They're like, they actually absolutely killed it. This year, they did not impress me nearly as much. So I thought it was good. It didn't impress compared to the other ones. And I'm going to be honest with you, a lot of these didn't impress. And I was looking for a wow beer this year, and I did not get the wow.
Spoiler alert. I was going to say, you know, once we wrap this up, but there really was not anything that just really jumped out and said, this is excellent. You know, we had, you're going to have some here you'll be perfectly happy with. But I do think we've had some that have wowed us a little bit more in years past. So that is that. Okay, that's round 2. So that one made number 4 was my favorite, I think, out of round 2. Number 6 went to the semifinals for me. So we went to that. Brian, I think you've actually been doing some research for us over there. Do you have some chicken dance lore for us?
So I do have some additional details. I guess the infamous dance originated in Tulsa, Oklahoma. It was inspired by a song from the 1950s, and the name of the song was the Duck Dance, and it crept over into the U.S. in the 1970s, and a band decided to start playing the song wearing duck costumes, and so when they did that really took over, and it kind of became a thing.
And then it's chickens, duck to chicken.
I was about to say, is not the lyrics of the song, I don't want to be a chicken, I don't want to be a duck. So
are there lyrics?
I believe there are.
I actually don't know
there are lyrics. I believe there are. I don't want to be a duck, so I shake my butt. Quack, 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 quack.
I don't think I've ever heard the lyrics.
Oh my gosh. Is this?
Or maybe I just haven't noticed them.
No, like this is yet another level.
Maybe these lyrics were added on later.
It could be. This could be backfilling the meaning,
of course.
But no, it makes some sense. So okay.
Well, you know what, Brian? Speaking of transitions, it's something we share, I think, every year with Oktoberfest, the original traditional Oktoberfest in Germany. That Marzen and Festbier have not always been the beers of Oktoberfest. So exactly how did we get to that?
Yeah, so our history on that, historically, brewing was only allowed from September 29th, which is St. Michael's Day, to April 23rd, which is St. George's Day. So legally, in Germany, you could only brew in that period of time. And people wanted beer year-round, so brewers started making a stronger amber-colored beer late in the season. They called that Marzen, or March beer. And for many years, about 1900 to 1970, Marzen was kind of the king of beers that you drank outside of that season. But what we know is Oktoberfest beer now, Marzen, is not even the most popular beer at Oktoberfest today if you actually go into Bavaria. Today, the Golden Fest beer, which we have a few of in this tasting, is the more popular one. It's a higher ABV kind of Helles type of thing. It's definitely the most popular. It's a more easy drinking style than a Marzen because has less of that kind of building, cloying maltiness of a Marzen, which is still very popular here in the U.S. I can still drink a liter of Marzen and not have a problem, but I think when people are drinking over in Germany, they're looking for those fest beers. They're easier to put down. And like I said, they can be a little higher in ABV, which is a little dangerous. They frequently are up by maybe 1% or so. So the transition from the Marzen to the fest beer in popularity in Germany began in 1953 when Augustiner introduced their lighter color Edelsdorf, which took over as the most popular beer at Oktoberfest. So the favorite beer style over the years, going through all of history, it started out in like the early 1800s, 1810-ish. It was a Dunkel. And then about 1872 to 1900, they went into box. They got into box. And then from 1900 to 1970, at Oktoberfest, they went into Marzens. And 1970 to today, it is fest beer. So there's been a bit of a transition of styles throughout the years. It's very interesting to follow. The fest beer is so popular in Germany that Paulaner's Oktoberfest Marzen is mainly brewed for people outside of Germany. So they don't even... It may be available at Oktoberfest, but I think that the lion's share of what they sell is actually their fest beer. You can still get the Marzen in Germany. It's not even called the Oktoberfest over there. I think they call it a Munich Marzen. So they typically pour an Oktoberfest called Wiesenfest beer, which would be their fest beer. I don't know if I've seen their fest bear outside
I
of
think
in the
some
US.
of what we get here is just due to our expectations of
Yes.
what Oktoberfest beers are going to be. So either way, I enjoy. I've got to get over to Oktoberfest sometime. We have
Yes.
a crew of friends that are over there right now. Our friend Owen Ogletree that leads Brewtopia events. He does a trip there every year and takes a group of folks over and enjoys Oktoberfest. So Owen would be a good one to go to because he knows people.
He would.
He knows people, so that would be a good one to go to.
He can probably get you one of those long tables inside of one of the tents, which I think are very hard to come by.
Sought after.
Yes.
Very sought after. Well, Brian, before we move along, how about we give a shout out to our friends at Truck and Tap?
Yeah, Truck and Tap. So I'm recording this well in advance of it airing, so I don't have the privy.
The big list there?
I don't have all the lists.
Okay.
You definitely can find all of the information about what's available at truckandtap.com. They have lists for all of their sites as well as the what's on for the food trucks. But what I'm going to recommend you do is do something I call Truck and Tap Roulette, where you you get a random number generator, you let it pick your beer for you. And I will always give you a mulligan if it lands on a pumpkin beer or a seltzer. You always get a do-over. So I'm never going to make you do that. I guess every now and then I think they have a tap that's coffee. And while I do like coffee, I understand that that's not a beer. You get a do-over. So yeah, go in there if you want to do it right. Do the beer, and then go to the food truck and do the food truck roulette as well. Pick a random number, and that's what you're going to pair. You're going to have these two things together, have a unique experience. You don't have to do that. You can go there anytime and just check out what's there and drink what looks good to you. They've got a nice variety of things. They have more and more Oktoberfests coming on, and they do have in a few weeks, they have an Oktoberfest party that's coming up. So you'll want to be there for that. They're going to have Bavarian vibes. They're going to have all kinds of interesting drinks, and you'll want to be there for that. So yeah, check out truckandtap.com for more information about this and everything else going on, events and whatnot. And
they're going to have some good beers there.
Oh, absolutely.
You'll be set to have good beers there. And at every Truck and Tap location, they have either painted our name into a mural or they have a hanging sign or something with Beer Guys Radio. So if you go out and you visit Truck and Tap and you send us a picture of Beer Guys Radio there, we'll send you a swag pack. So go out, check out Truck and Tap, tag us on any of the socials. Pretty much, we're on all of them. So tag us and we'll hook you up. We'll get you a swag pack. So Truck and Tap, thank you for sponsoring Beer Guys Radio. We greatly appreciate it. So now, y'all, on to round 3, our 7th, 8th, and 9th beers. Party Zach.
Oh,
beer number 7.
I'm up. Okay, so kicking off round 3 of our sampling was the Yuengling Oktoberfest. Got to say, I enjoyed that one too.
Yuengling. I think that Party Zach has done radio before.
It sounds like it.
Yeah. Maybe a little bit.
Is it coming in?
So
okay.
It's there, man.
I've done a bit of radio.
I think once you've done that and you kind of get that in
There's
there,
a cadence.
you turn it on.
Yeah.
And it can turn on when you. All right, here we are, guys. We're on the mic. Here it comes. There. So, all right, beer number 7, Yuengling. Yuengling classic. American beer. You got to get that one in there. Mike Nate, number 7. What'd you think?
7 was my 4th. I believe it actually could have been my 4th round pick. I said that I liked it. It's got great roasty flavor. Knowing that it's Yuengling, knowing that I can get it wherever I want for the near future makes me happy.
Okay. All right. I have grassy and herbal notes in this one and did not enjoy it. So I didn't care for this particular one. It just didn't hit for me. And again, grassy herbal, I'm assuming that's from the hops that they chose to put in there. That kind of dominated for me. The malt and stuff didn't shine through. So that's where I landed on that one. Zach, what'd you think of the Yuengling?
Yeah, I thought it was good. I feel like I detected perhaps notes of pumpkin that were a little more stronger in there that maybe had come from the previous beer. I'm not entirely sure. Okay. I will fully admit my palate isn't perhaps as refined as you fine gentlemen, but I did thoroughly enjoy it. And like Nathan said, the fact that it is so widely available, if I'm feeling like in the fall festive mood and I want a really good Oktoberfest, like, hey, Yuengling is a solid middle of the road. Like, it may not be the best. It's certainly not going to be the worst. Like, solid choice.
But you'll be fine.
You'll be fine. Yeah,
if this is what you want, you're good to go.
If you're going to your local liquor store or whatever, and it's they've got 10 beers available, and there's Yuengling, you're gonna be fine with Yuengling. It's a great choice.
This is fine.
This is fine. It is great.
Yeah. Brian, how about you, man? What'd you think?
I think I get a little bit of what Zach was saying. It wasn't pumpkin to me. I got something like it was like a caramelized banana in this, and initially it was sweeter. And I kind of liked it. Initially for this round, it didn't wind up being in my top at the end, but it really impressed me coming in. And that's actually pretty good for Yuengling, because I think of all of the shows we've had Yuengling in, that's never been one that's really spoke to me, but my palate's been a little weird this time. So I did enjoy it, and I'm glad to hear that I wasn't alone in that. It was unique compared to the other ones.
I think it's interesting that each of us had slightly different notes. Like, a lot of times we've been pretty close on what we got out of it in that, but you said maltiness in that. Nate, you got in there. You tasted something that reminded you of pumpkin. Brian got some caramelized banana there.
Yeah.
And I got some grassy and herbal. So, hey, if nothing else, it's complex, it sounds like, from the different notes in there. So interesting to see what we got in that one. Zach, what is our number 8 beer?
All right, and coming in at number 8 is Edmund's Oast for their House Oktoberfest.
All righty. Well, my notes on this one, I put caramely malt in there and creaminess. Like, it had a creamy character to me. I enjoyed this one fine. It was nothing that said this needs to go into the final round for me, but it's fine. And again, Zach, going back to what you said, if I'm out somewhere and this is on tap, you know what? There weren't any of them here that I say I disliked, and we have had some in years past that were like, this just isn't good. There were some that didn't impress me, but I think all of these, if that happened to be what was on at the place I was at, I would be okay with that. But overall, it just didn't wow me there. So, and actually, I'm looking at my wrong notes. I don't have any notes on the Edmund's Oast one. There was nothing there that stuck out enough to me to really say anything. So I'm looking at our next beer there. I actually put a squiggly line on my notes there because there was nothing that really stood out to me on that. But again, it was mid. That's the term I think the kids are using these days.
Does the squiggle look positive in any way, or is it more of a negative squiggle?
It kind of looks like my signature a little bit. So maybe I just signed here.
It's like that you received the beer, you signed for receiving.
I signed. Fair Brian,
point.
what'd you think of it?
I like this one. So this one definitely improved as it warmed. I got some nice like crackery, sweet, festbeery flavors, and it was one of these. I kind of thought for a minute that it could have been German. It might have even been the Weihenstephaner because I remember liking that. I'm like, I think this might be German. I think this might be that one, and this one did wind up going pretty far for me. So I like this one.
Okay.
I didn't have specific flavor notes, like nothing. I didn't get caramelized banana in this one. So this one just seemed just generally speaking, very positive. So,
okay. Gotcha. Nate, how about you?
I'm like you, Tim. I didn't do a squiggly line. I said slightly bitter, comma, and then there was no additional notes. It just didn't seem like it had anything that jumped that needed to be put down on the page.
Yeah. Okay. Fine. Yeah. So that's what we got on that one, y'all. That's what that was Edmund's Oast, right, Zach?
Yes, that was.
So that's our thoughts on that one. And our number 9 beer, Zach. What was that?
Yes, number 9, wrapping up our third round, is the Ayinger Oktoberfest Marzen.
All right. Y'all, for me, that was the one I put the caramel and creamy on there. So, it was noticeable, enjoyable enough. Nothing that really jumped out to me that wowed me there. So, Zach, what'd you think of that one?
Yeah, I'm a little bit like you. I got less of the caramel, but did get more of the creamy. It was a pretty decent texture. Again, I hate to say it, it wasn't offensive, but it wasn't, mind altering. It was the sort of beer that, hey, if I got it and I was handed that at a party or, saw it on the shelf, I'd drink it and be like, yep, that was pretty good. That was decent, but nothing to really write home about. But, a solid middle of the road pick again.
Solid, right in there in the middle of the road. How about you, Nate? What'd you think?
In past years, I felt like Ayinger has had a good showing. And this year, I said it tasted fine. It was another one of those beers that just didn't really wow me enough. That got me really excited. If I got handed it, of course, I wouldn't say no. But overall, it was an okay beer.
It was okay.
Yeah.
It was okay.
Yeah.
All right, Brian, that's your thoughts.
It's a little surprising of the 3 for this round. And this was the third round. This was in last place. And Ayinger, maybe last year or the year before, was like number 1, number 2, like in that range. And it didn't place for me at all. That's so weird how that happens, but it was fine. That was it. It was fine,
None of the beers from that round for me made it to the final voting round. Made it to the semifinal. So
Same
7, 8, 9.
Yeah.
So, Brian, you said was number 8 in your final choices there?
Yeah. Number 8 did wind up going into my final top 3. So yes.
Okay. All right. Well, y'all, we've got one more round to get to, but before we do that, something I think is fun. There's a lot of drinking phrases in Germany, not just around Oktoberfest, but in general. But there are some that you will specifically hear around Oktoberfest. Brian, what are some great German drinking phrases?
Well, I mean, one of the finest is Frühschoppen, which is morning drinking. So if you're drinking in the morning, that's your Frühschoppen. You meet at the pub late in the morning and you drink a Weissbier and sometimes have a meal. And it's popular after church services in certain regions of Germany. But there has been a little bit of a decline in this kind of activity because there's less of a activity with people going into churches. So I guess Frühschoppen is what you do after you go to church in the morning. So kind of an interesting thing. The one I have said personally a number of times, and sometimes even after tapping a keg, is Ozapt is, which is it is tapped. So I got a chance to do that one time. I got to hammer home the tap and announce that to the world, and I felt like Thor when I did it. It was great. It was wonderful. Prost, of course. Everybody's heard that. That's cheers. Zum Wohl is to your health. Bierleichen, which is, I think you found this one, Tim, some years ago.
I heard it somewhere. Beer corpses.
Beer corpses, yeah. So that's what the locals call people who get really drunk. They can't maintain at Oktoberfest, and they wind up passing out in the grass. So they got beer zombies all over the place. This one I can never actually say properly. Gemütlichkeit. It's the state or feeling of warmth, friendliness, and good cheer, which has to do with drinking some beers and hanging out at Oktoberfest typically. And you'll hear this probably in the tense, 1, 2, 3 Gesufa, which is, and I probably didn't say that right, but it's 1, 2, 3 drink.
1, 2, 3. Yeah. You know what we're going to need to do? We're going to need to look up the German pronunciations before the next show because we've been doing this a long time, and I'm sure we're just absolutely butchering the German language with this. But plenty of things to shout out there. We've all said Prost Oast is, which they open Oktoberfest.
Yes.
With that when they tap that first keg, and that's shouted out.
They gamble on it. I don't have the stats in front of me, but in previous shows we've talked about, they gamble on how many hammer hits it's going to take the mayor to drive home the tap. And on the best circumstances, I think it's like 2 times, but they've had some that have gone into the teens and like
teens.
I think so. Like those are some very embarrassing mayors. Let me just tell you.
I think you have to leave the city if you go over. I think the thing is you want to get it in that first tap. You want to have a nice solid one, drive it in there.
Yeah.
I think if you get past 2, your street cred goes down with each swing of the hammer.
Well, and it could be like something defective, either the tap or the keg
or you
spout or you. Yeah, potentially you. So
Brian, when you tap that keg, how many swings of the hammer did it take?
I think it was 2 or 3. I don't remember.
7.
No, it was not 7.
7.
I want to say it was probably 3.
Some say he's still tapping to this day.
I take breaks from the show just to go tap on that from years ago.
Like,
one day we will tap this keg.
Yeah, that was with our friends down at Deer Beer Garden in Atlanta.
It was.
They do a pig roast, and they bring out some nice beers and that. So that was a good time. We were going to do a show with them this year, but due to illness, injury, and scheduling, we just couldn't work it out. So we'll give them a shout out. Deer Beer Garden in Atlanta. Good German food, good German beers, and good people there. So that is a good time. Going to do our final round. Beers 10, 11, and 12. Party Zach.
It's me.
Beer number 10.
Beer number 10 kicking us off for the final round is Tucher's Festbier. That was I think that was pretty high up there for a lot of us.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, that one did. So my personal notes on there, I said this is crisp, bright, has a light sweetness to it. I said that there were noticeable hops, but they were refined or subtle there. But the character was there. This was a favorite, and I really enjoyed it a lot. So the number 10 beer, and that was, again, Zach, you said it was a Tucher?
Yes, Tucher's.
That's the way we pronounce that. The Tucher, that was one for me.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm going to go with Tucher instead of Tucher.
Sounds great.
Definitely sounds better there.
It's probably Tucher.
Tucher? Is there probably
Tucher?
That makes sense.
I think it's
okay. Tucher.
Tucher.
We'll have to figure this out.
One day we'll know all this.
It's a very Flemmy sounding beer there. It's Flemish.
It's Flemish.
Yes, probably.
Nate, how about you, man? What'd you think of that one?
You know, I'm going to echo you, Tim, in my sentiment for it. I said it had a strong showing, good flavor all the way through. This quickly got into my top 3. I really enjoyed this beer. I really, really enjoyed this beer. It just really surprised me getting something that stood out. It kind of wowed me.
Okay.
What I'm trying to say.
There you go.
Yeah.
And that's, this year that's been something. Zach, what'd you think of it?
Yeah, very similar. I'm trying to even think if perhaps this was just a nice little reprieve from the caramel creaminess we had been indulging in the past, 4 or 5 beers. And this was just a nice little light crispness. It was, I thought it was phenomenal, though.
Okay. Good stuff. Beer number 11, Zach. What was that one?
Number 11. We are looking at 6 Bridges, and they're, oh boy, tell me how bad I'm going to mispronounce this. The Fierabend?
So I looked, after I totally slaughtered the name, I looked up the beer online, and I think it's Fierabend or something along those lines. Guaranteed that none of the pronunciations we've shared with you today is correct, but you know what? If you're looking out there, it is spelled Fieierabend. So if you're looking around for that one, Nate, what's your thoughts, man?
This one, it seemed like the bitterness was a little, I can't describe it too well, but it just seemed like it came in really high on my palate, and then it just petered off from there. I don't have a whole lot of notes on it just because it didn't, besides being a little bitter, I didn't have anything that stood out to me.
Okay. All right. Brian, what'd you think of that one?
I like this one a lot, and this wound up going into my top 3. There was some interesting malt sweetness to this that was unique. And at one point, and it may have been the coldness of the beer and it needs to open it up, but I'm like, I asked people, like, did anybody else taste strawberry in this? I'm like, that kind of blew me away. And it did not, as weird as that sounds, I'm like, I don't hate that in this. I kind of like that. So this was very unique, and it made me take notice. And I don't think any of these were necessarily wow beers, but this was on the verge of being, wow, this is pretty good. This was interesting. I'm like, you know what?
Okay.
I like this a lot. It's very interesting. And even made a note that I need to go back and review it. And on reviewing it, it did very well. So,
and it's a local brewery, Brian. So
it
you
is.
get some more out there. Absolutely.
Yes, I can. Yeah.
All right. Zach, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I quite got the strawberry notes on there, but I did feel like there was a little bit of a berry on there somewhere.
Yeah,
Some sort of fruit sort of nice crispness to it that I was pleasantly surprised by. It was, I would definitely say, in the top half of my list, probably not number 1 or 2, but definitely really up there. A very, very solid pick. Six Bridges. Thumbs up.
Way to go.
Yeah.
Six Bridges.
Well done,
there.
local
Good
guys.
stuff. And this one I'd had, this was actually the first one that I had this season. I had it on draft at Taco Mac and really enjoyed it there. This time I enjoyed it, but again, nothing jumped out to me. I don't recall getting berries in it. Maybe detrimental to the beer as it was number 11 in the list, but enjoyable. I mean, it's just solid beer. And I really enjoyed the one I had on draft with a little fresher palate there. We did eat some stale saltines to try and cleanse our palate there. So
Yes, we did.
we tried to do our best, and
I think that everything we did probably set us back. The cola flavored Oreos set us back. The musty saltines set us back. The extremely good Chex Party Mix probably miscalibrated us a little bit. So
that's why I finally said, I'm like, no, this is too much stuff. Let me get some saltines on there, clean this palate off. So with that said, you know what? I'm going to make a guess at our 12th beer. I bet it's Warsteiner.
You are dead on
that,
it, good
man.
sir. Warsteiner's Oktoberfest was what wrapped us up in our sampling.
So there we go, y'all. That is that's it. Number 12. Nate, what are your thoughts on beer number 12, Warsteiner?
Felt like a dud.
Okay.
It really just fell flat on the floor for me. I don't have, unfortunately, anything super illustrative about it to say about it.
I wrote nothing down. There was nothing that stuck out to me. Again, it was the 12th beer, and I'm like, I wanted to have something to say on it, but there was nothing to reach out. Nate reached across and put me a scribble there for that
nice,
one.
yeah.
But there was nothing that jumped out enough to be noticeable at that time. And at that time, having tried all the other beers, I knew that it was not going to be one of the ones that went to my final round of voting there. So again, nothing offensive, nothing that stood out that said this is bad. If it's what happens to be on tap where you are, and you want, a Marzen, then order it up. Zach, what'd you think of that one?
Yeah, I hate to say it, and I feel a little bad, but Warsteiner just did not. It didn't feel like it delivered, and maybe it is because it was quite literally last in our lineup, and I had already tasted, a wide gamut of flavors and experiences, but it just, I didn't really even have any notes to write down about it. It was just, again, definitely a beer, the most beer of all time.
The beerest beer that we've ever had there.
It is.
Brian, what'd you think?
I think it's funny because I write my notes on my Chromebook here as I'm going, and initially I'm like, oh, this is also good, and then after a couple of other things, I write, you know what, I like this less. Like as it warmed up and as I drank more of it, like no, I take that back. I'm not that into it. So this initially poured, I'm like, okay, this is pretty good, and then as I drank more of it, it's like, no, this is kind of a non-entity for me. So yeah, it's unfortunate. It was fine. I didn't hate it, but I wasn't in love with it. And it of the round 4, it was in last place for me. So of those last 3 beers.
That about wraps up our tastings. We're going to go into our final results right now. But now, before we do, Brian, I think you've got some Oktoberfesty stats.
Yeah, so I compiled all of the information about the beers that we were drinking because I like looking at the data and see what we're doing and how it compares to other years. So in terms of where our beer came from for this particular one, we had 5 from Germany, 6 from the U.S., and we have one that I separated that I said it was a U.S.-German collab, but I think it was brewed in the U.S. So we had slightly more U.S. beers than German beers, but we had a good representation from both sides of the Atlantic. In terms of style, we had 9 Marzens and we had 3 Fest beers, and I think that's down a little bit from previous years. I think we may have been 4 or 5 Fest beers at the height, but it seems to be ticking back down. I guess we're going back towards Marzens. In terms of ABVs, the highest was Edmund's Oast House Oktoberfest at 6.3%. The lowest was Highland Brewing's Clawhammer Oktoberfest at 5%. The average ABV of all the beers that we had was 5.68%. And yes, I did put that in the spreadsheet and run the average on that. In terms of IBUs, we had at the highest point, and we did make comments about how hoppy some of these were. 26 IBUs was the top point of all the ones that reported it. Weihenstephaner and the Sierra Nevada Gutmann collaboration tied for the most hops. And the lowest was Yuengling's Oktoberfest at 14 IBUs. And our average overall was about 22. So not very hoppy beers typically. So 26, I guess those extra 4 bits of IBUs really jumped out at us. Three of the beers we had did not report their IBUs. So, and one of them had the highest untapped rating, and the other was tied for second place. So the ones that didn't report what they had in terms of IBUs, we don't know what they were doing, but they did well in terms of like the group ratings on Untapped. In terms of Untapped ratings, the highest was Six Bridges. That's the one we can't pronounce. Feyerabend?
Feyerabend?
Yes. 3.84, which is that's a really good scoring for an Oktoberfest, because Oktoberfest don't do terribly well on Untapped for some reason. They're not hazy IPAs. So the lowest was Yuengling, Oktoberfest 3.43, and I always feel bad about reporting that, but I think that's over a lot of years, and a lot of people, kind of being biased against them a bit, considering that they're a larger brand that's widely available. The average was 3.68, so not quite 4. But that about covers it, Tim.
Those are the stats. Well, y'all, it is time for our winners list. And the way we tabulate this, it's actually pretty easy. We don't get too crazy with it. Each of us goes around. There are 4 of us that tasted this year. Full disclosure, Zach is the one that served it to us, so he was not fully blind. But he's honest.
I am.
He's honest on what he thinks there. But Nate, Brian, and myself all tasted these blind and gave our thoughts and our ratings and that with having no idea which beers it was. We knew what all beers we had because we got them, but we didn't know which ones we were tasting there. So with that said, I'm going to go down the list real quick, and I'll mention the ones that just got some votes and what they did. And the way we did this is our beer that was our number 1 gets 3 points. Our number 2 beer gets 2 points, and our number 3 choice gets 1 point. We tabulate it up, and that's how we come up with our top 3 to share with you. So on the list there, Terrapin, the first beer we tasted, there were no votes for Terrapin on the list. For Warsteiner, I can't read my writing, so let me look here. Zach, our number 2 beer. That was Sierra Nevada.
That was the Sierra Nevada.
So the number 2 was the Sierra Nevada, and it got 2 total points on there. Our number 3 beer was Paulaner. It did not get any points on this. The number 4 beer, Highland, which got a total of 4 points. Our number 5 beer, which is Weihenstephaner, number 4 beer. Again, I have got to learn how to write. I think I've got my list out of order here. What was our number 4?
Number 4 was our Highland Brewing.
That was the Highland.
Yes,
so number 4 was Highland.
October.
Number 5
was the Weihenstephaner.
Okay, and no votes for that one. Our number 6 beer, Zach. Sam Adams?
Sam Adams, yes.
Okay, we got 2 points for Sam Adams there. Our number 7, I believe, was Yuengling.
Correct, sir.
All right, no votes for the Yuengling on there. Our number 8 beer, Edmund's Oast.
Yes, sir.
We got 1 point. Edmund's Oast got 1 point there. Ayinger, our number 9, correct? All right, no points for that one. Tucker, however you want to pronounce it. Yes, that is number 10. I think I'm giving a spoiler with the way I'm doing this. 9 votes, 9 points for the Tucker. Six Bridges, which are number 11 of beer, had 3 total points, and the Warsteiner, our final one, got no votes. So with that said, again, a little bit of a spoiler there, but in the number 3 spot, we have Six Bridges, Feyerabend. In the number 2 spot, we have Highland Brewing's Clawhammer, and our number 1 Oktoberfest for 2024 is Tucker. A German one takes the crown this year.
Wow.
And we've gone back and forth on that. I think we've had American beers in the top there.
Yeah. So. And here's the thing. I think Tucker hasn't even been involved every time, and we almost didn't pick it up this time.
Right.
We should probably get that one. We should include them. So, dang, I'm going to have to make a point of keeping an eye out for them. It's impressive. I'm a little surprised that Ayinger didn't do better, because I remember that from previous shows doing better. And this is very interesting results.
But overall, again, there were some of these that just didn't stand out. They were unremarkable, but still fine. And again, we are tasting a bunch of beers, and we're being critical of them. That is our intention here. Be critical, really dig into them. But all of these beers were fine this year. And that's it. That's our Oktoberfest tasting for this year, our 7th annual. And we've been having a good time with it. We appreciate you guys tuning in, checking us out every year. One we missed that our friend of the show, Patreon supporter, Coach Rogers, he had a couple from Founders. And I forget, one is like Founders Imperial, or what's the...
I think you said Founders Ultimate.
Founders Ultimate, and then they've got a regular one. But those two in their group's tasting were a couple of the top ones there. So we're going to have to keep looking. We couldn't find those in our search right now, but we found these, and so we tasted them.
Yeah.
That's what we do there.
Don't sleep on the Tucher.
Don't sleep on the Tucher.
Yeah.
I believe that's a slogan.
I think so. Or the toucher, or whatever you want to say.
Yeah. Well, y'all, thank you so much for tuning in. We always appreciate it. We hope that you have some good Oktoberfest beers. Enjoy the rest of the season there. Not a lot left. We normally do this earlier, but again, scheduling. It was crazy this year, but we made it through. So y'all have a good time. Don't forget to drink German. Cheers.